Hello everyone, my name is Nathan and welcome to Maple Street. If you're new to the channel, my channel is all about classic Hollywood. I love black and white movies, black and white TV shows, and a lot of my videos are tailored around topics such as this where I rank a classic Hollywood actor's filmography or maybe a director's filmography, things of that nature. So I hope you enjoy your stay on Maple Street. Today we are talking about one of my favorite actors of all time, Henry Fonda. Before I get into the video though, a bit of a funny backstory. So I wanted to release this video a year ago, but I got really sick and I wasn't able to release it on his birthday last year. So I put it on the to-do list. No matter what, in 2024, I am releasing this on Henry Fonda's birthday. Traditionally, I make these kinds of videos talking to a camera. I actually got a really bad sunburn yesterday, and if I were to show my face, you would think I'm a cast member from Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. So I'm sparing you that sight and just doing a voice recording for this one. Not the traditional route for the top 10 actor videos, but we're trying it out. I do find it funny though that it's almost like the world does not want me to make a Henry Fonda ranking video. Like, please just let me do it. I love this guy and I want to talk about his movies. The way this will work is I talk about my favorite movies with Henry Fonda in them, not necessarily the movies that have him the most or where he's the main character. Some of my entries, I'll admit, he's not in the movie very much, but a movie overall is very good, and so I couldn't not include it. I'm stoked for this. Without further ado, let's get started on my top 10 favorite movies from Henry Fonda. So what you're looking at right now are the 26 movies I've seen from Henry Fonda. I like to give a visual of what I've seen so that you have an idea of what qualifies to make the list. If your favorite movie doesn't make the list, I'm sorry. At the end of the day, this is all my opinion. It's all very subjective. So I have a few quick honorable mentions that I want to give a shout out to before I get into the top 10. They are Tales of Manhattan, The Best Man, My Darling Clementine, The Wrong Man, and Mr. Roberts. Number 10, we have The Tin Star from 1957. This movie was directed by Anthony Mann. It stars Henry Fonda and Anthony Perkins, which that within itself is an amazing duo. The movie is about Henry Fonda. He plays this ex-sheriff, now bounty hunter, who stumbles upon Anthony Perkins' town after he is returning the body of an escaped convict that he wants to collect bounty on. He meets Anthony Perkins' character, who is a young sheriff, and realizes that he's basically doing everything wrong when it comes to being a good sheriff in town. So the movie is following Fonda coaching Perkins and the different conflicts that arise from the coaching relationship and the different conflicts that arise within the town itself. And so really liked that mentoring plot. I'm just a sucker for those kinds of movies. Plus I love a good Western, so this was very enjoyable. Number 9 goes to Jezebel from 1938. This movie was directed by William Wyler and it stars Bette Davis and Henry Fonda. So I really like Jezebel. It's hard to talk about in a Henry Fonda ranking because it does star Bette Davis, but the chemistry that he has with her is incredible and her character is very annoying but still somehow kind of likable. The movie has a lot of similarities to Gone with the Wind, and so think about how you feel when you're watching Gone with the Wind and how you don't like Scarlett, but you also are just kind of invested in her story. That's how I would compare Jezebel to that. Really good movie. If you're a fan of Gone with the Wind, you'll probably be a fan of Jezebel. Number 8 goes to The Longest Day. This is from 1962 and has a few directors, including Bernard Wicki, Ken Anakin, and Andrew Martin. This is that unique moment where Henry Fonda's in the movie, but probably no longer than 7, maybe 10 minutes. And that's what the movie's going for. It has this star-studded cast, but it's not as much focused on a main character as it is focused on the events of D-Day leading up to it and the different perspectives going into that day. I didn't mind not seeing him a lot. I actually really liked the different stories we saw. And so this movie kind of makes the list by default just for the fact that he's in it and it's a great movie. It has some of the best black and white cinematography I've ever seen. There is this crazy POV shot where you feel like you are a soldier parachuting down into a German village, and it is one of the scariest images I've seen in a movie in recent memory. And of course, the scene on Normandy was incredible. Like, I cannot believe this movie came out in 1962. Coming in at number 7, we have The Oxbow Incident. This movie came out in 1943 and was directed by William A. Wellman. My review for this on Letterboxd is just simply 12 Angry Cowboys, because there are a lot of parallels to 12 Angry Men. These people are put in a situation where they have the opportunity to decide whether or not a certain party of people are innocent of a crime or guilty. I'd say the biggest difference is that 12 Angry Men is rooted in the law, and so regardless of the decision they make, they are under covenant to follow the law and make a unanimous decision. Whereas in the Oxbow Incident, it's more of a free-for-all, every man for himself. What do you think? Are they guilty? Are they innocent? And the two opposing sides are, they're guilty, let's kill them on the spot. Whereas Henry Fonda's side is, no, they deserve a trial and to appear in court. And so that's what the holdup is in this movie. And as you watch it, it's very similar to 12 Angry Men in that it's very engaging and also frustrating. Highly recommend it. Number 6 goes to The Grapes of Wrath. This is from 1940, directed by John Ford. I've only seen this one once, but it really left a strong mark on me. I think what I like most about the movie is just seeing this perspective of living such a poor life, but also even though you're poor and you're in these awful situations, at the end of the day, you still have your family. I liked that message a lot. Plus, a bit of a hot take coming from me. So for those of you who don't know, my favorite actor of all time is James Stewart. The year that Grapes of Wrath came out was the same year that Philadelphia Story came out, and James Stewart would go on to win the Oscar for Best Actor in a Leading Role. I actually like Henry Fonda's performance more here than I do James Stewart's, and Henry Fonda was competing for that Oscar. So I would have personally given it to Henry Fonda. Now I will say, that was James Stewart's only Oscar win, and so if that means that he doesn't win an Oscar the rest of his career, I hate to say it, but I'll still give it to Jimmy Stewart. But for what it's worth, at the end of the day, I do prefer Fonda's performance here. It has a lot more depth, and there's a lot more emotion in it than there is with James Stewart's performance in Philadelphia Story. But then again, there's that whole rumor that the Academy was making up for not giving it to him for Mr. Smith. So that's a whole nother topic for another day. Let's move on. We have another movie directed by John Ford, Young Mr. Lincoln. This came out in 1939, and Henry Fonda is unrecognizable here. It really is his voice that gives him away, because the makeup that they used to mold a young Abraham Lincoln is just so impressive to me. I didn't really know what this movie would be about. I mean, other than following the life of Lincoln in his early career before being president, I didn't know much going into it, and I really enjoyed it. It's all about his experience with law and practicing law. You follow a court case, and I'm a sucker for a good courtroom drama, and it was not only an engaging movie with a good court case, but it was also funny at times. By the time the movie ended, I not only had a greater appreciation for Henry Fonda and the performance he gave, but also for Abraham Lincoln. I love the idea of following this young, eager to learn person who just wants to make a name for himself. Very inspiring and easy to watch. Number 4 goes to possibly the most underrated movie on this list. That is 1962's Advise and Consent. This movie was directed by Otto Preminger, and similar to The Longest Day, has a star-studded cast. There's Henry Fonda, Charles Lawton, Burgess Meredith, Don Murray. The list goes on. There are very few people that I've encountered that actually know about this movie, let alone who have seen it. And it's such a good courtroom drama. It's from 1962, and it deals with so many issues that are still present today. The acting is incredible, and when you know the behind the scenes feud between Charles Lawton and Henry Fonda, it makes the movie scenes that they share together even more intense, because their characters oppose each other, and in real life they oppose each other. So just a lot of drama, I guess, going into that. But in the movie, even if you take Henry Fonda and Lawton out of it, there's this whole story behind the crookedness of Washington, D.C. It's kind of like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, but not a feel-good movie. And I just hope with all my heart that the movie gets more recognition with time. It deserves a Blu-ray release. I would love for a Criterion release, but honestly, any label could pick it up. I just want to own this in my collection. My number 3 goes to Once Upon a Time in the West. This movie was directed by Sergio Leone, and it came out in 1968. I've only seen it one time, but it left such an impression on me that I have not forgotten. in it. And the interesting thing about it is you see Henry Fonda in a villainous role, and that is totally against the norm. In so many of the movies I've discussed today, I've been holding him up as this hero. He always plays the hero. And so to see him playing such a villainous role and to see him do a good job at it, it is so shocking, and more power to him in the phenomenal performance he gives. For those of you who don't know, I have my own personal movie award show. Each year I award the first time watches from the previous year. I saw Once Upon a Time in the West for the first time in 2022, and it was a serious contender for Best Picture of the year. In fact, it was beat out by another Western, 3:10 to Yuma from 1957. But I will say Henry Fonda won the award for Best Actor in a Supporting Role that year, because I was just so impressed by what he does here. This movie is an epic, and I highly suggest you watch it. Whether or not you're a fan of Westerns, just watch it if you're a fan of movies. At number 2, we have Failsafe from 1964. This movie was directed by Sidney Lumet and really stars Henry Fonda. There are a lot of other supporting actors, including Walter Matthau and Fritz Weaver, one of my favorite alumni actors from The Twilight Zone. I don't think this movie would be as good as it is if there was another director attached to it. It's very narrowed in on being a claustrophobic and intense thriller. The camera angles, the shadowing, the sweat you see, in a lot of ways, it parallels 12 Angry Men, which is fitting because it's from the same director. The basic plot is because of a technical defect, an American bomber team mistakenly orders the destruction of Moscow. This is where Henry Fonda comes in. He plays the President of the United States, and he's the one in charge of the negotiating between the US and Russia. And what I love about this movie is it feels like a full-length film from The Twilight Zone. So I've seen it 2 times, and I was worried that on a rewatch it wouldn't quite have the same impact because I know the outcome of the movie. And I'm very happy to say that that was not the case. The movie is still as much of a thrill ride, even on a rewatch. If you're looking for that thriller, that intense movie that has you glued to the screen, I highly recommend Failsafe. And my number 1 Henry Fonda movie, I mean, you knew it before even clicking on the video. It's 12 Angry Men. This movie came out in 1957. It was directed by Sidney Lumet, and it stars lots of men, specifically angry men. This is my second favorite movie of all time, so that kind of speaks for itself. I've made an entire video talking about 12 Angry Men. In fact, it was 12 things I love about 12 Angry Men, and I go into detail about why this movie works so well and why I think that it's such a popular and well-received movie. And so if you want to hear more in-depth thoughts, definitely check that video out. But for this video, I'll just say one thing I love about 12 Angry Men is how rewatchable it is. Kind of similar to Failsafe, even though I know the result of the movie, I am always engaged in the film. I know the lines, I know what's coming next, but yet the acting, the cinematography, the situations that these jurors find themselves in, it always grabs my attention. It's not a very complex movie. It's pretty straightforward. You understand what's happening, yet on every rewatch, I feel like I notice something new, and not necessarily new details from the case that they're arguing about, but more so various nuances from the different jurors. And I've found that the more and more I watch this, I'm fascinated on what these jurors' lives are outside of the courtroom, and how fascinating it is that they all came from different walks of life and found themselves essentially trapped in this room until they come to a decision that's unanimous. If you're watching this video, I would actually be very shocked if you haven't seen it. Well, we made it through the video. Thank you for your patience and for understanding my filming situation, and please send prayers that my sunburn will go away soon, because I am in a lot of pain. As per usual, please share your rankings in the comments below. Look forward to seeing them. Thank you all for watching. Have a great day.